podcast. With me, as always, is Pierce Allen, and we're joined today by Jackson Durham. He's been on the show before, probably like a year ago.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
been a little
Jackson,
while.
we're happy to have you on, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good to be
but
back.
we're gonna talk NFL Combine today, the three of us. Ayush isn't able to join today. Maybe he'll join on last second, but I don't think so. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the combine. It is a little, I guess, in theory, it's a little early because what's the first day of the combine? I think 28th is when the first workout. I think that's defensive lineman.
27th, I think. So it's early.
27th. That sounds right. That sounds right. So, but because of the fact that I'm going to be leaving town for a little while, we needed to front load this episode and get out early. So I texted Jackson out of the blue last night and I was like, "Hey, bro, you gotta hop on the episode." And he was like, "Hell yeah!" So here we are. But and to be honest, so Jackson, when we were running offsides and you were hosting 5 Yard Fantasy
Hmm.
at the time. So I just randomly, I was like, man, I just wanted to randomly listen to an episode. And that was like yesterday evening. And I pull one up, and the first episode I pop up, it's like you like rapping some like fantasy football rap at the very
Oh God.
beginning. And I was
Oh,
like, okay, we got to get this guy on. But
oh man.
yeah, I was like, whoa, this was so unexpected. But okay, so
I
yeah,
can't
we're
even
gonna
remember
dive
what
into
that was.
that. Well, we're not going to dive into the rap. I mean, maybe if you want to pull together a combine rap, like we could.
Maybe.
I don't even know if I can't even remember what that was. I'm sure there was a reason why. I know I was experimenting with like a lot of cold opens, so I'm sure that was one of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
I was doing because
Um,
I remember having success with those. So oh gosh, that'd be hilarious to go back and listen to though.
um. Okay. Well, since it doesn't seem like you're gonna do a freestyle for us, the intro, we're gonna just run the regular intro here, our lame introduction, and then I guess we'll dive into this conversation. You should have done a rap intro, bro. Come on.
Man, I
Next
if I
time, at
knew you
least.
were gonna pull that on me, I would have had one ready to go. I
Noted. All right. Next time we'll have
Next
to do
time,
that.
man, I'll have this. I'll write some bars down
All
because
right.
I'm not that good with the freestyle. It's got to
All
be
right.
pre.
That's fair. That's fair. Um. So yeah, we're gonna dive into um the combine today. There's a lot of guys that are gonna be on the field in Indy as usual. That have a lot to gain and have a lot to lose, and that goes beyond just dollar signs. That goes into draft stock. That goes into, I mean, the better this is something that you go out, you perform at a high level, you set yourself up for a lot of career success. Or on the contrary, you go out there, you have a bad performance, you could find yourself on a practice squad here in a couple months and really never be able to see the light of day to be able to have the opportunity that you've kind of grown up desiring. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of guys on that field, and especially in a draft class like this. This is not the most, at least, saying this from my perspective and what I've been able to evaluate throughout the pre-draft process. I don't think this is the best draft class, to be honest. I think that there's a lot of good defensive players. This is one of the best, probably one of the best running back classes I've ever evaluated. Maybe probably the best, if I'm really being honest. And that's with 7 years of evaluation. I don't think I've seen something like that. But in between the lines there, you have, I think it's a better quarterback class than it gets credit for. You have a decent wide receiver class. You have a decent tight end class. The offensive line class is disappointing. The linebacker class kind of sucks. This is not a draft class that kind of, and not everyone will agree with that, but this isn't a draft class that, in my eyes, is really super powered, which means for a lot of these guys that they have a lot to gain because they can truly jump from being someone that could be in that second or third round territory to all of a sudden you're a top 30 draft pick and you are a day one starter here in 6 months. So Um, I guess I'll start it off with our guest, Jackson. Name off. I guess let's just kind of do it in bunches here. Name off a couple guys that are on your radar that you think have a lot to gain here at the combine here in a week.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be on pretty much everybody's list. So since I go first, I get to steal him. Jalen Milrow,
Yeah,
100%
one hundred
is
percent.
one of those guys with a ton to gain or a ton to lose. He's coming off of an absolutely disastrous, headline-makingly bad Senior Bowl performance in both the practices and the game. Really couldn't have gone worse. But he has the athletic profile to kind of wipe it from the public's memory. Uh, and we've seen people do this before. We have seen people bomb early on in the draft cycle, have a phenomenal combine, and right the ship. And if anyone can do it from this QB class, it's definitely him. So it'd be really, really interesting to watch. So definitely he would be on my list. Savion Williams, another guy
Oh,
on my list. I'm here in Fort Worth, so going to TCU games, I pretty much went and saw every single one that they played this year, and he is so fun to watch. But he is your classic receiver that comes out and you're looking at the physical profile and not a ton of production. And if he doesn't prove it at the combine, it's going to hammer his stock. But if he does validate that what you see on tape, big boost for him.
yeah, 100%. I think, and I mean, you mentioned with I'll go back to Milrow really quick, but you mentioned with Milrow, and I think that was a guy at the top of before we recorded this episode. All three of us mentioned him. He's the number one guy that has something to gain. That's that. If he were to go out there and or if he were to say like, oh yeah, I don't want to go to the combine, I'm not going to. He needs to move heaven and earth to make sure that he's out there and he's out there to run that 40 time because he's going to run that 40 and he's going to go up around immediately. Even though me personally, I've talked about this on this podcast. I think I've preached it a couple times, to be honest. When it comes to the combine, you can't compound these performances. And what I mean by that is if we expect Jalen Milrow to go out there and run a 4.4, he shouldn't get a one round bump, but he will. That's just how it works. He's going to get a bump if he goes out there and he does exactly what's expected. Uh, but I think he's someone that can perform very similarly to even like Anthony Richardson. I don't think he's going to be
Mhm.
quite that level because that's something that was a god tier performance. That was probably one of the best performances at the combine I have seen since I started evaluating the draft. And but Jalen Milrow could do something similar to that. And I wonder if he's going to go do the full workout or if he's going to just go run. Uh,
I would be
you know,
stunned if he does not do the full workout.
at the same
He has
time
everything
though,
to lose not doing the full workout, in my opinion.
at the same time, and I agree. I think that I'm pretty confident he's going to. But if he does, uh, he's one or two horrible passes away, which I feel like could very well happen during his workout from going out there running the 40 and then immediately just like, oh yeah, you screwed it up. You had your kind of you were riding your high and then you screwed it up. So um I don't think it's entirely off the table, but I would be stunned too. I think his agent's going to be all up in his ear and be like, yeah, you have to go out there. And the best case scenario is he dominates the 40. He goes and has a 40 plus inch vert and then goes out there and has a good workout and throws some accurate passes and shows off he has a good arm. I don't think he has Anthony Richardson's arm. But he has a good arm and he can air it out. And I view him as like a Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts type of player at the best, at the very best. But in terms of his overall style, I think that's kind of what he is. He kind of runs a lot like them. He throws a lot like them. He processes a lot like them. So, um, uh, okay. So Pierce, moving on to you. What is a handful of guys that are high on your radar that you think could gain a lot in the upcoming
Uh,
week?
Jackson Dart first comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
He was a bright spot in the uh, Senior Bowl and practices and games. Uh, and I'd say the most to move up, Quinn Ewers as well. I mean, just in the quarterback room alone, in this class, people are bashing Quinn Ewers. I mean, even I am. Like, I mean, and that's not just because I'm here at College Station and they despise the T-SIPs, but no, it's Quinn Ewers coming out of high school. People were naming him the next Patrick Mahomes before he even stepped foot on a college campus.
Yeah,
Um, he
pretty
has all
much.
the talent in the he has all the talent in the world, arm arm strength, and that's what everyone was talking about.
Hmm.
And if he can come out and perform well in terms of accuracy, showing off the arm, whether it be also in a pro day, combine, he can shoot up draft boards faster than ever. He could have that Baker Mayfield type of ascension in a draft board, like what happened in what was it, 16? When Baker jumped to
Seven.
one, 16 or
Yes,
17,
17. I
17.
think I was at that
Yeah,
or at that
because
draft.
he jumped that high. Like Baker, performed well in combine and pro days, and that he jumped all the way up to number one. I feel it now. Can Quinn Ewers jump to one? I mean, you never know, but I definitely could see him going from a day three to a day two draft pick for sure if he performs well in the combine. Another guy, um, moving away from QBs and skill players, uh, Josh Josh Conley Jr., the Oregon tackle. We were discussing about it earlier. He struggled mightily in the Senior Bowl. In fact, I think on a lot of people's highlight reel, including Mike Green, um, the edge from Marshall has a video of him just running straight through Connolly on a play on a rep. Uh, I feel like he can benefit from performing very well, testing well in the combine. Can have Troy Fatanu from last year's draft class. He's built, smaller, more compact, but if he does well, I feel like he can still be a late first round draft pick, early second round. Just in all really just for the guys that I just listed, it's how you test, it's how you perform in reps, in your 40 time, and then I mean, I feel like if he can move the 225 pretty easily, I feel like he can move, catch a lot of eyes from scouts.
Yeah, and strength is one of his question marks. I think that the one thing that he does have in his advantage. Actually, let me confirm this. I want to see what his arm length is. But one second. So his arm length is 34 inches.
Mm.
Um, but one thing he does have in his advantage is people built like him can sometimes be they can sneak up on you in terms of their functional strength because they have a really compact build, so that all that strength centralized. So I don't think his functional strength is great, but I could see him going out there and having a surprisingly good bench press. But yeah, I like the Fatanu comparison because that's one of the guys that he immediately reminded me of early on. But okay, so uh, I'm actually having a hard time with this one, to be honest. I have a number of guys here that I'm just like, I I I could really see these guys getting so much steam from the combine, but I have to narrow it down. So I'm going to narrow it down to actually a handful of guys that I haven't gotten full eyes on their full evaluation yet. So what I do with my scouting is so I have basically a platform that puts together projected athletic traits, and it basically connects a grade to it. It puts together a grade based on their body type and their height, weight, uh, arm length, hand size, in addition to their body composition, et cetera, body mass. And then I basically have a preliminary grade process. And some of these guys will run really, really high on that. And one of those guys is Darius Alexander, who's currently a top 60 guy for me. And I've seen the highlight reel. I've seen it. I've seen he had a really impressive play. Man, I can't remember who it was against, but he uh, first off he was dropping back in coverage as a three tech defensive lineman who weighs I think like 310, and you don't see that. That's pretty incredible. He picks off the ball and he runs it back for a pick six. That's kind of his blockbuster play at Toledo. Um, uh, I saw him at the Senior Bowl, eyes on, because I was there and I was able to see. It's kind of different whenever you're there because you're actually able to see how these guys are built, how these guys carry themselves. Also on the sideline, you can see if these guys are talking or if they're kind of alone. He was someone that kind of caught my eye early on, and he had a really good combine and he got on a lot of people's radars. But he's someone that I think could run in the 4.8s potentially. He's a good run defender. He had, man, I remember at the Senior Bowl, I think he had one really impressive play. It was like a goal line, basically a goal line tackle for like a loss of 4 yards, and everyone like was like gasping. They're like, "Holy crap!" That was he just uh, shot the gap and went straight through and made the play. But he's someone that can rise on my board and pretty much everyone else's board. I could see him actually ending up as a first rounder when it's all said and done if things go right. Um, Colin Pierce is another one. This is a Rutgers offensive tackle. He is one of the single biggest players in this draft class. Let me get those measurements really quick because they're pretty impressive. Um, uh, he is 6'07", which means he's 2 inches less than 6'8". So he's pretty much 6'8", 200 or 342 pounds, 36 and 5/8 arms. The hands are a little bit well, they're not small, but they're a little bit uh, less impressive. 9.3 quarters, which isn't, it's a little below average.
That's a large human.
But so this is a big dude, and he had a good career at Rutgers. This is another guy that I didn't get eyes on his film yet, but he's someone that runs a top 100 grade in my preliminary process for the guys I haven't evaluated. Um, and if he goes out there and he has so the typical 40 for that type of guy is like a 5.3, 5.4. If he goes out there, puts up a 5.2, if he looks good in drills, if he dominates the bench press, which actually I don't know if he would do because of his long arms. But all he needs to do is have one or two drills in there that he goes out there and he looks sharp. And then all of a sudden he's going from someone that's a day three type of guy to a day two type of player. So, and then I'm going to fire off these two guys really quick because I think these are going to be some of the fastest guys at the combine. Jaden Blue, Texas running back, and Theo Weiss, Missouri wide receiver, who is the running mate with Luther Burden. Those guys can fly. I think those guys are going to run low 4.3s. And Blue is, I wonder, do I have that as my? He might be the guy I have as my fastest player out there. I think that might be. Oh no, Arian Smith going to be there? Because if Arian Smith's going to be there, he's going to dom. Arian Smith is going to be there, yeah. So, but yeah, Jaden Blue is one of those guys that I think is going to dominate the 40, and uh, yeah, but that man, there's a lot of speed from Texas this year. I'll say that. There's going to be Matthew Golden, Blue, and then Isaiah Bonds. So they're going to be flying through those 40s. Obviously, 1 year after uh, we got the 4.21 from Worthy, and wow, I can't remember. AD Mitchell had like a 4.33, but all right, so let's talk about guys who have something to lose, and I'll start that off with you, Jackson. Who are a couple guys on your radar that you think could see a big drop off with a poor combine performance?
I would say Walter Nolan is
Mm,
definitely someone that could see a massive drop off if he
yeah,
does not validate the athletic profile that is such a huge component of what you like about Walter Nolan is his explosiveness. And he does show it on tape sometimes. But his down to down inconsistency, which is something that we've talked about prior to this, is something to watch for. And if he's just not on at the combine, it's going to cost him a lot of money. So he is definitely someone to watch for. And then Bashal Tootin. He is another candidate to run the fastest 40 of anybody in the combine. He's super fast, but he's also coming off of an injury. So if that affects him in this, if it slows him down, it's going to lower his stock. But if he has the type of run that he is absolutely capable of at full health, then he is going to go from a day 3 pick to a day 2 pick.
Yeah, agreed. Pierce, what do you got?
One of the bigger guys that I have, Nick Scorton, defensive edge out of A&M. Uh, came into the season top 10 projected draft pick, top 12 because of just his body of work that he had at Purdue prior to A&M, and then just wasn't up to par of his last 2 years at Purdue this past year. I feel like if he doesn't test well or he isn't up to par, he definitely see him drop out of the first round into a day 2
Yeah.
draft pick. And I want to say, um, part of me wants to say Malachi Starks, but
I like that.
Ooh, yeah, he was on my list actually.
Yeah, that's good.
because he's flying under the radar. Like, yes, he was one of the top rated prospects in his high school class. He had a phenomenal first 2 years playing under Kirby Smart in Georgia for those two dominant defenses. But then this past year, I want to say he pulled a disappearing act. Like he had a phenomenal play at the beginning of the year against Clemson, but after that, it was just here all season.
Yeah.
Nothing, no big spikes. It was just like, okay, that big spike started at the beginning of the year and just going to stay.
Yeah, he kind of coasted.
Just coasted. Because I think in his heart and in his mind, if he tests well, he will be a day 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
If you're not up to par, though,
I don't think he'd have a similar drop. No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't think he'd have a similar drop to Cam Kinchins last year, but I do always think of like athleticism is so important at the safety
100%.
position, and you saw that with Cam, someone who came in with so much hype to the combines, late first round projection, has a terrible combine, and then ends up sliding to the Rams and becoming a massive steal. I don't think he has that kind of a drop, but you do have to validate it, especially at that.
No, yeah. And I think it's important to, in these types of conversations, to understand like not all of these guys are good players because of their athleticism. Some of these guys are pure technique. And like there's a, I mean, I'll bring up Harold Fanning here in a second whenever I'm on, but he's a very technical guy. He's not an athlete. And the problem with Scorton though is Scorton came onto the scene this offseason and everyone was like, oh, this dude is a big athletic freak off the edge. And you just didn't see the unleashing of an athletic freak. He was a good player this year. And honestly, he had the production to be able to be a first round pick, but then you kind of factor in the fact that he wasn't all he was built out to be. You were expecting him to be kind of this exactly what his teammate is, Shamar Stewart, where he's this athletic freak, and that was never the case.
I can say, just hearing reports and stuff from guys close to the program, him and Shamar Stewart both played like halfway and throughout the end of the season, hurt, banged up, and stuff like that. I'm not just going to blame injuries, though. I mean, like Nick Scorton did not live up to what I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to lead the SEC in sacks. That was me. Like, because they were hyping him up. I was hearing so much hype around. This guy led the Big Ten in sacks. He surely can lead the SEC in sacks as well.
There was a point where he was. Some were saying he was going to be a top 5 player in this draft.
Oh yeah.
Like actually, there was a pretty
100%.
big time movement on that.
Absolutely.
I saw him as high as 1.
Yeah, I saw him go first in some mocks.
As high as 1.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just I mean, and I agree with some the talks of Walter Nolan because his days at A&M were he was in. There would be like, hey, 2 really good plays, and then what are we doing, dude? You're getting pushed back by the center.
Yeah.
Who you outweigh by maybe 20 pounds of muscle and you're letting him move you around. Like what's the deal? Um, I don't know if this. I don't know if he's going to perform or not. We'll probably find out like closer to the draft or the combine. Um, I feel like with the most to lose could possibly be you could throw Shador Sanders' name in a hat. I think because
Yeah,
it could be just him doing interviews.
yeah,
Like you can get an idea of his attitude because you bring up it's yes the combine itself, the 40, the bench, the reps. It's athletic, but then there's also the idea of how do you can you take an interview.
yeah,
Scouts are going to see that. They're going to see your attitude. They're going to see your character. Shador Sanders is going to step in front of NFL scouts, knowing that his dad isn't there for him anymore.
yeah,
His dad and coach, the guy that's raised him up from birth. Uh, and I just that's I don't want to say it's concerning, but it's a big question mark for me. It's like how is he going to step out? I don't want to say step out from under his dad's shadow, but like step away from the nest because he's
no, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
everywhere with his dad. He's been everywhere with Prime
yeah,
because I mean, can he handle things by himself?
yeah.
That's just
All right.
that's just on
Um,
my mind.
no, yeah. Okay, so uh, Harold Fanning, I just mentioned him a second ago. A lot more of a technical guy than he is an athletic guy, but he's someone that people are having a little bit of a hard time placing him. Where is he going to play? Because if you so he's not a traditional wide tight end. He's not going to go out there and I mean you could use him as like a lead blocker, but he's not someone that's going to drop back and pass sets and take care of business. He's a good route runner, not an elite athlete, so he can't move with quickness and speed. He can move with fluidity. He's a fluid type of athlete more than he is a uh, quick type of guy. Um, but that does not bode well with the combine. And I mentioned it before we recorded, but I'm not a big fan of how the combine is set up. I feel like it needs to be a little bit more modernized, specifically because of the fact that there's not a lot of it doesn't do justice to the guys that are more fluid than they are quick because or fast. Because whenever you go out on that field, there's your Z receiver and sometimes your X receiver are pretty much the only guys that are running 40 yards straight down fields, and just yeah, it doesn't happen like that. You're occasionally your running back's going to break open and uh, he'll have a long breakout run, but otherwise your corners aren't turning and running. They're pivoting. They're fluid. They have to have fluid hips. And guys like Will Johnson, who is a good athlete in my eyes, he's going to get a little bit of a knock because he's not going to go out there and run a 4.340. He's going to run a late 4.4s probably. But I think Harold Fanning is in that same type of uh, area. And he's not going to run. I think he's going to run like a late 4.6. He could have something like, man, what is the one kid from Pierce? I know you know this, the A&M tight end. Weidermeyer? Jalen Weidermeyer?
Watermeyer,
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Watermeyer, Watermeyer.
Remember, he can't. I feel like he was in a similar type of situation as Fanning,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and or Fannin. And I could see Fannin go out there, and I think they're actually, now that I think about it, they're pretty similar players. They weren't athletes; they were more technical. Fannin's a lot better of a player, point blank, period. But I could see him getting a little bit of a knock just because of the sheer fact he's not going to run a fast 40, and he's not going to have a great three cone. He's not going to have a good 20-yard shuttle. Um, and yeah, I wish that there was a little bit more of a due diligence to these type of guys because uh, and I mentioned it before, I think that there needs to be some like a ladder drill, like a time ladder drill in the same type of breath as the three cone that challenges their footwork and times their footwork and requires them to be precise. And I wish I'm gonna scream to the hilltop. I want the hula hoop drill. I want that timed, dude, because that shows off balance, that shows off fluidity, it shows off quickness, but that's a challenging type of quickness. It's not just stop, go, turn. It's you're literally your hips are being tested. And I think Fannin would be someone that would perform pretty well at that. And if they time that, that's something that people would hit home on. Anyway, so uh, another name. So I'm going to name off one that is similar in the sense of what y'all are saying. Then I'll name one that's kind of in a different type of mindset. Deion Walker, big 350-pound defensive tackle, 6'7.5", big boy, big boy. It freaks me out how top heavy he is. It feels like at times his upper body is a sumo wrestler, and then his lower body is like my legs at times because his lower body torque is trash, dude. And it causes him to be off balance. You're gonna find him on the ground a lot. He does not know how to stay fluid. I mean, he's not that flexible. The feet are not great. The hands, he doesn't operate with a very wide pass rush toolbox. But um, whenever you look at that type of player, though, you're like, dude, this guy could be a big deal if we got the right coaching staff, we got the right like I said, the lower body needs to be worked on. So he needs to be hitting the squat rack, and he needs to be building that lower half. So they need to get someone he needs to get a good training system. He needs to get a good diet, and he could be someone that's going to go in there and be a rock star. But I don't think that this is a good situation for him at the combine. I don't know if he accepted his invite or not, but I could see him being one that didn't. But
I think
and
he's
then
on the list
I
of
knew he was
participants.
invited. I knew he was invited. Is he? Is he?
Let me see if he's going or not.
See.
Because I think they have the full participant list out.
I don't see a. I'm not seeing anything that says he accepted or didn't accept. Yeah, I see that.
He is listed as a combine participant for 2025.
Gotcha.
On
Okay.
the
Well, yeah, he could earn himself a lot of money, or he could lose himself a lot of money. So, but yeah, and last one. This one's a little bit of a different direction, but Josh Simmons, Ohio State. I don't even know if he's going. I don't think he's going to be able to perform, but he's going to get medicals at the combine. And this is a guy that if those medicals come out all right, he's going to be a potentially a top 20 pick and one of the first, probably not probably, potentially the next offensive lineman taken off the board after Will Campbell. Um, the problem is he suffered a season-ending injury this past year, and I did. I had to sell an arm and a leg to be able to get the data. Let's see what exactly the injury was. It was a left patella tendon injury, uh, undisclosed, so we don't know exactly what it was. But from the research I was able to gather, that is a very difficult injury to return from compared to an ACL. ACLs suck, obviously, but we've seen a lot of players return from ACLs. This one's a little bit different. So that's a little bit dangerous territory. He's a good player. He had a great year before his injury. And man, I think it was the game. I think it was Penn State that he got hurt, if I'm not mistaken, which was a game after the Marshall game. But I really wish this is kind of a caveat, but I really wish we got to see a little bit more from him against Mike Green. We got a couple reps, but that would have been a showdown, just like a pure gladiator fight. But Simmons reminds me of a guy that I really liked coming out of the draft 2021, Christian Darrisaw. Darrisaw was a guy that was typically range between, he was like a late first round grade for most. I had him as a top 5 play. I think I had him at 4th on my board, Darrisaw. So I saw a lot of that in Simmons, but I'm just like, I need I need some good news on this medicals before I can go ahead and say, yeah, you're a top 20 guy at the worst. He's currently 24th on my board. So but a good player nonetheless. And uh, Yeah, and he's very. It's worth noting. He's a great athlete, and what sucks is when you get injured as a great athlete is the thing that's getting compromised isn't your football intelligence. It's not your technical ability. It's your athleticism. So
Mhm.
I don't like that whenever I see a great athlete like this getting hurt because uh, that's what your game centralized upon. So, um, but yeah, so that's an interesting one, and that's one that we're not really going to get a lot of data on because that's there's HIPAA laws, there's that type of stuff doesn't just get out there. So, but yeah, all right. So, um, let's flip the page to the most polarizing players here, and I think with these topics, there's a lot of overlap here. I think in theory, you could put any one of the guys that we've talked about on any one of these areas because if you have the most to gain, you also have the most to lose. Because if you go out there and you screw it up, then the opportunity that was available to you is all of a sudden eliminated. But in that same breath, polarizing, these are the guys that they could go out there and surprise a lot of people. They could go out there and that could be in a positive or a negative light. So, um, but uh, Jackson, who are a couple of guys on your radar that are really polarizing in your eyes?
I would say Landon Jackson.
Oh, I love that. That's a great
Def-
pick.
the defensive end out of Arkansas. There's
Yeah.
so much to like and there's so much to dislike with Landon Jackson in terms of his profile is everything NFL teams are looking for in terms of size, in terms of athleticism. He's got freaky long arms. He's like 6'7", if I'm not mistaken, with crazy long arms, but not productive. And not particularly a standout at the Senior Bowl. In fact, it kind of went in the other direction. He had a good game. I think he picked up a sack in the Senior Bowl game itself, but
Yeah.
in the drill, he was kind of getting worked at times. So it'll be very interesting to see how he performs at the combine if he can validate that profile, similar in a lot of ways to Walter Nolan, because so much of what you like about him is built on that athletic profile. So if it doesn't check, then his stock is just in free fall.
Yeah, and with Landon Jackson, I think this is a conversation that's been had with Camp Scatabo. Obviously,
Mm.
bear with me here. The Arizona State running back. So Scottaboo is a very physical type of player, and landed athletically very different, and especially relative to position. But kind of what I'm getting at here is Landon's someone that's a lot more of a he's a very big time motor guy. And sometimes you're like, maybe are we elevating him because of his motor? And that's kind of how Cam Scatabo is. He's not the most insanely traitsy guy, but he's a lot of bark and usually bite with that. But I do want to see Landon. I would love to see Landon go out there, dominate the combine. He's a good athlete, like you said. But he if he goes out there and dominates at the combine, he my first mock, I had him go in the first round. I'm a big time Landon Jackson believer. Where do I have him on my?
I
I
think
have him
there's a
as
lot.
a
I'm higher on
yeah
him than most, but I definitely understand the concerns that
yeah.
a lot of people have.
He's been pretty much top 30. He's kind of ranged a little bit because I go through and I trade my or I change my grading platform, but he's 25th on my board currently. But he's been like top like 27 for the past 6 months for me, and he has not dropped out of that. And I think that's going to stay that same way when it's all said and done. But um, a very good player. I think a lot of like Trey Hendrickson, but you add more athletic ability. But I like that type. He was kind of someone that I had a hard time comping for. He's someone that's kind of his own little prototype, but um, he has that type of upside too of Hendrickson.
There are not many
Um,
people with Landon Jackson's size and physicality. Yeah,
oh
he's
yeah,
very unique.
very few. He's someone. Yeah, he's someone that you look at and you're just like, dude, this is what I wanted defensive ends. This is what I want. And
Exactly.
I think a team like the Lion, man, is that who I mocked him to? I think the Lions would love that. Yeah, that's who I mocked him to. I think the Lions would love this type of player. And I think the Ravens would love this type of player. The Eagles, this is someone that late, especially late in this first round, there's like 3 or 4 teams here that are going to be all over this. I almost feel like if he goes out there and he has a good combine, it's going to be really hard for him to find his way out of the first round because there's so many guys, so many teams here that are just like this is what they want. This is what they look for. So, um,
Mm. He does feel like a Baltimore Ravens pick to me. Like
yeah,
that, the way you said it, I immediately clicked.
yeah,
I can see him in the purple.
uh, yeah, for sure. Um, all right, you have another one, Jackson, or are we moving on to Pierce?
You know, I would say Isaiah Bond. He did kind of come up.
Yeah.
He's another one in my opinion where it's kind of like Xavier Worthy last year. It's a speed check. How fast is he really? You just kind of want to put a number on it. And with Worthy, he blows everybody out of the water and the
Mm-hmm.
stock nukes. I don't think Bond has that kind of. I don't think he's going to go out there and break the 40 record, but he has that potential to when you put a number on it. And it goes back to kind of what you said about Jalen Milrow, where should we raise these guys just because they go out there and validate their profile? Maybe not, but he will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't, but it will. It's just how it works. I think at some point that's got to change, but um, and also worth noting, and I mean, it's easy to make the Worthy comparison to some degree, right? Because of the helmet, but
Yeah.
the type of player, but it's important to note, like you said, the speed check, but there are really a lot of similarities between these two guys, and we actually, man, now that I think about it, Jackson, when we did uh, one of the episodes we did, it would have been like one of the first 10 episodes that we did here on the War Room. We talked about Worthy and we did
I
a
remember that
little
now.
bit of an in depth. We were lower. I think we were both lower on him. I know I was.
Yeah,
And
he impressed me a little bit this year. I think
yeah,
he
I totally
fell
agree.
to the exact team that he needed to go to. And
Oh,
this is
yeah.
something that I think we both mentioned is that
Mm-hmm.
fit was going to be huge with him.
Yep.
What are you going to ask him to do?
Yeah.
And the Chiefs did not ask him to consistently win on the outside. They knew that wasn't his bag. They for a while there made him a straight up gadget guy, and he fit right into that role. We have
Yep.
our Chiefs host hated it when we call him a gadget guy at work. But he was for a little while there, and he played that role beautifully in the Andy
Mm-hmm.
Reid offense. And Andy Reid loves his gadget guys, and it was just kind of a match made in heaven. And he has developed, to his credit, into much more than a gadget guy. He is now kind of. I don't know if he's capable of being the number one in that offense, but we're gonna find out. I think in the next
Yeah.
couple months here with how Rishi Rice comes back from injury and how his legal situation goes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in the conversation of Worthy here, something that with Worthy was sometimes he was so much speed that he couldn't kind of control it. And
Mm.
sometimes he would fly through these breaks as a route runner. And I see a lot of that with Isaiah Bond. And that's something like I'm a car guy. I like cars, and obviously a lot of the times, people are like, oh, I want a V8, I want speed, I want acceleration. But a lot of the times, it's how cars handle and how they're able to take turns. And I think with Bonds, uh, sometimes that's a little bit of an issue. But this is a guy that you go and exactly what you just said. It's a scheme dependent type of player. If you go out there and you put him in the right role, I think he fits best as a Z type of receiver where he's just flying down the field and you just unleash him vertically. You give him post routes, you give him corner routes, you give him 9 routes, and he's someone that could be a stick of dynamite for you. Uh, but yeah, so and you're right. The number check is so important for him. I think if he goes out there and he runs a low 4.3s, or I don't think he will, but I think he could be like a 4.29 guy potentially. But if he does that, he's someone that he went from a first round type of guy at the beginning of the draft season during the off season. That's where he was. He was a top 30 type of name, and now he's top 100 type of name. He could jump right into that like early day two type of conversation if he has the right thing. I don't know about first round, but uh, yeah. So okay, Pierce. Some polarizing guys on your radar for the combine.
Uh, wanted to say I do agree with the Landon Jackson pick for being really polarizing. A lot of good, a lot of question marks. The I actually had the pleasure of seeing him live. I went to the A&M Arkansas game in Arlington this past year, and I don't think there was not one play he was either making first contact, making the play, or getting pressure on Marcel Reed, and it drove me insane. I sat there like, can we not block this guy coming off the edge? Because this dude has not stopped, and I don't think he will stop until this game's over. Um,
Yeah.
and just the physical traits of it, 6'7", and I mean, it immediately brought me to Shamar Stewart. I feel like that's a really polarizing guy, 6'5", borderline 6'6", long, really big guy. Didn't really produce much in college, but just I feel like with the physical traits, just being physically imposing, he'll test well. He already did a very was goodness was very uh, surprising in the Senior Bowl, in just drills in the game. I mean, and if you get a guy that's confident in himself as he was after interviewing, saying you don't want to pass up on this, I mean, and that's not me. That's me being a fanboy, but then also just looking at the tape, like he was on the verge of being unblockable during
Yeah.
one-on-one period. Um, another, I feel like another guy that could be even more polarizing. Um, I don't know if he's going to be running or doing any of the drills. Abdul Carter,
Yeah.
already looking at the tape, he's getting Micah Parson comps, stuff like that. Like I just feel like going from the same college as Micah,
Wearing the
if
same
this
number. He
wearing
looks
the
like
same
dude. It
number,
freaks me
looks
out.
like
He
him,
looks
runs
like
like him.
Micah. Also, Micah had this one's a little like out of left field, but Micah had some off the field problems. Abdul Carter, people don't know this. He has a couple off the field problems in the past. And then linebacker turned edge rusher. It freaks me out, dude. It's literally I watching
One of
him,
those Penn
him and I'm
State
like
dudes, man.
same height, same weight. He's like I mean, let me pull up the measurements really quick, but it's like
Has
literally
anyone
the
ever seen him
same.
in the same room?
Say again.
I mean,
Has anyone ever seen him in the same room?
It's a good question. It would be kind of hard to tell them apart.
I don't know.
Six
but
six two 250 is the measurements I got him at.
gosh,
Micah's 6'3", 250. So
I mean, an inch
he's
difference,
gonna. I
but
think he's gonna be a four. If he runs,
goodness.
he's gonna be a four. High 4.4s, low 4.5s.
They're just making
So
him
a
in a
little bit
lab.
slower, but that's freak
Valley.
speed. This is literally, dude. He's literally Micah Parsons. Like it freaks me out, and that's why That's why people are sitting here. I talked about it yesterday or 2 days ago. It's suddenly become a little uncool to have Travis Hunter as the best player in this draft. Some people are
Hmm.
starting to. There's this late
I'm
ascension for.
uncool.
I guess it's not late because it's actually early in the draft process. But Abdul
Yeah.
Carter's starting to get this ascension. I think these people are just like, dude, if we the just the sheer chance of having another Micah Parsons is, and we just said it, it's freakish how similar he is, and
Hmm.
he's actually a better player than Micah Parsons was coming out of school. Micah was Micah was consensus the top 15 type of guy on the board, and Abdul Carter is going to be potentially the first overall pick off the board. I don't think so, but at a bare minimum, he's going to be top 3. I can't see him
Hmm.
falling past that, but yeah,
If he does drop, it's probably going to be someone bringing up those off the field problems that he had before
yeah,
college. But
and
yeah, I just
I think, and I don't want to bash. I don't like bashing people's character too much, but I just to clarify. I think it was like a fight or something, and then
mm,
he refused. So there was some sort of fight, and I think it was like freshman year, and then it was something along the lines of um like didn't man I can't think of the words, refusing arrest, something like that. So
uh,
just want to put words there.
Was it his freshman year of college or freshman year of
I
high
think
school?
so, yes. Freshman year of college, I believe. I think it was like 19.
mm.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
But yeah,
That's a little
but so
different. I was like, was he 14 when this happened? 'Cause I thought you said high school and then freshman. I was like, okay, wait, hang
no,
on.
yeah. Here, okay. Oh man, no, this wasn't. Oh man, my time frame's off. Uh, Oh, was I? Oh, I think I know who I was thinking about for that. This one's a little different. Who was that? That was there was a player who did that. This one is actually so it was April 25th, 2024. So it was less than a year ago actually. Uh, he assaulted a tow truck driver.
Oh,
Um,
I
and then marijuana possession in 2023.
mm.
So but the tow truck driver is
assault of a
a
tow
little
truck driver is really more concerning.
yeah.
That's pretty unsettling. I
Yeah,
have
for
not heard
sure.
anything about that.
And that's something that's gotten swept on the
Wow.
rug. And I think there's a similar discourse currently
Totally.
going on with James Pierce because people are realizing that James Pierce isn't a high character guy, but he has. This has been stuff that's been out, and for some reason, it's just now getting around. The good thing about the good difference between those two types of guys, it's a random comparison, but uh, Abdul Carter, from what I've discovered, seems to be a decent guy. So I think he's someone just with the troubled past. Pierce, I've heard true. He has some background, and then he actually has some personality question marks. So that's a little different for me. Is someone like Pierce? It seems like there's a two sided aspect to that, but yeah. So
Hmm.
all right, yeah. So let's move on from that and okay, and you mentioned Shamar Stewart a second ago. I
Hmm.
want to really hit home on the fact that I don't think we're going to get a pure Travon Walker type ascension from someone in this class. I think we could get Travon Walker light. Like I don't think we're going to
Yes.
get someone jumping from like 20 to 1. Well, actually he was like barely a top 50 guy at one point
Hmm.
and he goes up to 1 just because of a good combine. Uh but I think we're going to get someone that goes from that 25 range to top 10, maybe even top 8, maybe even top 5. And in my eyes, there's 3 candidates here. Two of them are from the same college as uh, Trevon Walker, and that's Jalen Walker and Michael Williams. And they've been in that type of breath for a long time. But and then Shamar Stewart is the third person on that list for me. Um, and all 3 of those guys are guys that are. I think Jalen Walker is probably the highest of the bunch on consensus boards. I see him most typically around that 15 range. I think I have him at like 13 myself. But Stewart and Michael Williams are both around that 20 range. And I could see one of those 3 guys having a good combine because they're all athletes. They're all well built players. Jalen Walker has a couple question marks because he's very compact, which leads to is he a linebacker? Is he a true edge rusher conversation? But I think one of those 3 guys, I'm pretty confident. One of those 3 guys is going to go out there, have a good combine, and then all of a sudden they're going to be a top 8, top 10 type pick. Um, if I was a betting man, I would say it's going to be Stewart though. But yeah. Okay, so on to my guys here. Jordan Birch, Oregon defensive end. We talked a lot about defensive linemen in this class or in this episode, but it's so easy to because that's the biggest strength of this class is defensive linemen because you can draft a high caliber defensive line. Like you could get a starter in the 5th round. I'm almost positive that there's going to be 1 or 2 teams that find a starting defensive lineman in the 1st round, whether it's year 1 or a couple years down the road. But uh, so Jordan Birch, Oregon defensive end, about let me get exact measurements here. He is I want to say 290, 294, 6'4", and he is a uh, 5 tech in my eyes. I feel like every year there's someone like this from Oregon. Like last year it was Dorless, where you get these big, gigantic sized defensive ends, and then everyone's like, "Is he a defensive tackle? Is he a defensive end?" And I think man, I can't remember. There was one other guy in the past 5 years or so that kind of fit that bill too. But Birch is so I said 294. My projection for him on the 40 is a 464. And I
Sheesh.
feel I think it could happen. I think the worst we're looking at from him is a 475. I think that's the worst. If I'm wrong about this, then I'll deal with it. But do you watch this guy move? It freaks me out sometimes. And this is one of those guys that he's a lot more athlete than he is football player. I think that there's a lot of mediocrity from him, and honestly, his functional strength at 294 is slightly underwhelming. But the athleticism, the fluidity, um, he the way he's built, he's not just a height weight guy. He's a very uh athletically built defensive lineman. And he's currently sitting at I think he's sitting, man, where is he? 60th? He's 54th on my board. I have a third round grade on him. And this is someone that uh like I said, the tape isn't incredible. He's not someone that's going to wow you, but there is a lot to project from this type of guy. This is that you don't get a 290-pound guy running a 4.6 ever. That's rare territory, and it genuinely could happen. I think that when he goes out there, I really hope that he's going to be participating at the combine and that he's fully healthy right now, because that would be one of those situations where uh, man, what was the Texas Tech kid last year? Tyler Owens, the safety. He was all athlete, no nuance. The different type of situation for Burge, because he has some technical traits, but and then Tyler Owens went out there and he started his 40, and he was supposed to be a 4.2 type of guy, and then he like pulled his hamstring. Uh, and then he couldn't run, and then all of a sudden, I don't think I've heard his name since. So that kind of sucks for him, because that was where he was going to get his money and he couldn't do it. But yeah, I think Birch is going to go out there and have a really good workout. And he has some production to him too. He's a 10 sack guy. He has a pretty high sack rate, 4.1%, which is a very good sack rate. And uh, yeah, I think he's someone that is going to translate pretty well to the pro level with good coaching. A low tackle percentage too. He's a 4% tackle guy. Good in the run game. Sometimes he struggles to make his fits and stay disciplined. He's obviously at his size. He's very capable of setting an edge, but sometimes he'll get a little aggressive on that front. But uh, good player. Okay, and then Armand Mimbu is one of my other guys. He was on the freaks list. Was it this offseason or the year before? Um, I think everyone's starting to hear this name. At the very bare minimum, you've started to hear this name, but he's going to be a first round draft pick, and that's a lock in my eyes. But uh, he's going to go out there. He's going to perform very well. I think he's going to be one of the best in terms of relative athleticism. This is going to be one of the best Raws guys. He's going to go out there and get a 9+ type of grade. He's 330, and he's going to run probably smidge over 5. So he's going to be. I have him at a 504 projection. I have him at a 30 reps on bench projection. That's pretty incredible for someone that's also going to be running a 504. So very powerful player. What that tells you is someone that is a good runner and is very strong. He's powerful. That's what you see on tape. He's a people mover. And the question with him is he an offensive tackle or is he an offensive guard? I have him as an offensive guard. That has nothing to do with the fact that he's one of my 14 first round grades right now. And I have him as a projected guard, even though he played tackle in school. But I think that question is going to get a lot of answers this here in a week at the combine, because teams are going to be wondering that same type of thing: is he a guard or is he a tackle for us? And we've seen that question answered very often at the combine before. And then really quick, last one, Siobhan Ravel, East Carolina corner, someone that was in the top 20 conversation before the season, got hurt for his ACL, missed the entire season. Elite athlete, large builds. This is your ideal corner type of build. I have him comped to Joey Porter. He's kind of that same type of prototype, but you're looking at a little bit of a better athlete. So he's going to be in the late first round conversation. Once upon a time, he was in that mid first round conversation. The challenge with him is the level of competition. He was going up against like Old Dominion and Norfolk State, and the good teams that he's going up against were like Florida Atlantic. So that was like going up against Georgia almost for him. So, but whenever you see that, you look for a man amongst men, amongst boys, and that's what he was. So his entire side of the field was on lockdown. Elite run defender too. Great run defender who's an elite tackler for a corner. But the question he accepted his combine invite. Like I said, he had the torn ACL. So the expectation is that he's going to go out there and do a workout. We'll see how limited that is. Even though he accepted, he might go out there just take a measurement. Maybe go through some drills. So we'll see if he's feeling up to par to go out there and do a bench, do a 3-cone, and all that. So, but yeah, do y'all have anything else to add? Any last second thoughts here, or okay?
No,
Yeah. Well,
good.
I do have one thing.
Yeah.
You were talking. I believe it was you or Jackson that brought it up. Um, Not everything in this combine is based off of just your physical aspects of the athletics. Yes, athletic with like the 3-cone
yeah.
shuttle, all those drills in the 40-yard dash. But some can have poor strength numbers, but can have near to perfect or perfect technique.
Yeah.
I don't know who it was that you were bringing up, but maybe you could say,
Fannin was in that
yeah,
breath where he's technical and not
hmm
a supreme athlete.
yeah, because it immediately brought me back way back to Travis Frederick,
Yeah.
former
No, yeah,
Cowboys center.
yeah.
I think he only got
I think he was
10
like
to 15 bench reps.
and I think he ran like a 4. Maybe I'm completely
Yeah,
wrong, but 4.3 sounds about right for him. I think he had a
Travis
bad
Frederick,
performance.
4-3.
Yeah.
I
5.3.
was like, man,
I
this
was
dude
gonna
If
was
he
say,
ran
there's
a
no way
4.3,
this dude was
if he ran a
strong.
4.3, then yeah, that's
No, but
a
yeah,
Well, that's
4.3
worth
set,
talking
bro.
about
We need to be
drafting.
putting him back at running back. Why is he playing center?
exactly. But yeah, like just that, like just
DeMarco Murray
seeing,
would have lost his job
yeah, exactly. But yeah,
to a
Travis
300-pound
Frederick,
lineman.
Freaky as hell. 4-3.
yeah, but yeah, Travis Frederick wasn't, the strongest, wasn't the fastest guy, but his technique was just as,
Yeah, it was
close to
just about as
perfect,
perfect as you can get. Yeah.
and he was a perennial All Pro at center for
Yeah.
majority of his career, and it
Yeah.
just hopefully as casual fans or people that see that and say, "Oh, well, he's not as strong." Strength's not everything. If you know how to use
Cooper Beebe
leverage,
sucked at the bench, dude. Cooper
exactly.
Beebe's game is power. And he went out
Hmm.
there and he had like 21 reps on the bench. And this is another reason why I sit here and I'm like, the combine needs modifications. Because Cooper Beebe's most of his strength comes from his lower body. And
Exactly.
that's why we need to be doing squats I mean, not even or, it needs to be
Deadlift.
both. I think they need to be doing like curls, something to measure arm strength, something like of
Hmm.
that magnitude. Bench doesn't tell you the whole
It doesn't.
story, and not
It
even
gives you upper
close to
body.
it. Yeah,
It just gives you the upper body
yeah,
strength. I mean, I've said deadlift, power clean, stuff like that. Just see the full range of body because it's not just the upper body that helps in this game. It's a full body. You're
yeah,
the stronger. this rings in my head every single day. Lowest man wins. If you have
Yeah.
the leverage and you have more power lower at your lower body and you can get lower than the guy in front of you, you're gonna
Yeah.
win majority of the time. So yeah, like that's pretty much all I gotta say. I mean, I would not be surprised if there are guys that get in the first round but aren't as strong in their upper body, but their lower body is what propels them into future NFL stardom.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, yeah, that pretty much closes it up. Jackson, a pleasure having you on today, buddy. We definitely need to have you on again, like before
Absolutely.
the draft, dude. That would be awesome
Yeah, just
if
let me
you're
know.
able. Um, yeah, and and well, I mean, we are, and that's on top of the fact that we're trying to get like a bunch of the offsides guys and gals to be on the collab mock that we're gonna do here in like a month. So we're
Hmm.
hoping
Yeah,
to
that'd
get
be
like an Avengers level team and just put that together and just yeah, that would be a lot of fun. We did a collab mock between me, Yush, and Pierce yesterday, or
fun. Oh
2 days ago, and that was good. But it would be awesome to have an even bigger panel and kind of have the melting pots of opinions because in the actual draft, none of these teams' boards look the same. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of a fun exercise when it's not just one person making a mock draft. It's a bigger panel where kind of all put your heads together and you make your pick. And some people are going to slip, some aren't, and yeah. So all right. Well, yeah. Anyways, thank you everyone for listening. We will be back. Like I said, I'm gonna be MIA for 10 days. We'll see if I'm able to record in between there, but it might just be Pearson use next week. We'll see. But all right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, and have a great week, everyone. Sweet. Awesomeness. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen.